If your brand message never makes it past the AI gatekeeper, your other campaigns might not even matter.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your no-fluff guide to artificial intelligence in higher ed. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing nearly 20 years of edtech and marketing expertise straight to your earbuds. Higher ed leaders are expected to master AI overnight, but let's be real, no one has time to sift through every headline, hot take, or research report. That's why every Monday, I'll break down what actually matters. Fast, clear, and to the point. Want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next team meeting? You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Higher Ed Pulse. On today's episode, AI search is here and new research reveals how quickly it's changing how students find and evaluate colleges. From ChatGPT to Perplexity, AI tools are giving students everything they need before they click your site link. Is this the death of the marketing funnel? Joining me today is Mike Bell, Chief Marketing Officer at Everspring. Mike brings over 15 years of experience leading digital strategy across sectors from fintech to edtech. Before transitioning into marketing, he served 8 years as a captain in the United States Air Force. He's also the co-author of Everspring's new 2025 AI Search Trends Report, and he's here to unpack what prospective students are really doing with AI, what the data reveals, and what colleges need to do to stay in the conversation. Mike, welcome to the Pulse.
Hi, Mallory. Thank you for having me.
So before we hit record, you told me that in just 12 days, you have a very important date in Mexico. Can you spill to our listeners?
Yes, I am getting married. August 16th in Mexico. Yeah.
That's amazing. So why Mexico and why August?
August, because it was the fastest we could do it.
Love.
And Mexico, because that is where my fiance is from.
Oh, beautiful. All right. So where in Mexico?
It's a little town called Valle de Guadalupe. It's sort of their wine town, their Napa, if you will. It's 2 hours south of San Diego and about 30 minutes from the coast. It's absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And looking forward to it.
Mike, I remember the month leading up to my wedding, which was in Southern California. And I was like, total chaos the whole time. So the fact that you're taking a few minutes to share your schedule with Enrollify and our Pulse listeners, I appreciate that even more now. How long will you be in Mexico?
We're going to, so my folks, if I leave them in Mexico, we'll probably never see them again. So I'm not be doing our honeymoon. We're going to get everyone back to their respective hometowns safely, and then we'll figure out a honeymoon. So we're only going to be there for about a week.
Oh, still beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Mike, we will not delay. We're going to jump right into this so you can get back to wedding planning. Folks, as I mentioned, this episode today is based off of Everspring's new 2025 AI Search Trends Report. And of course, you can find a link to where you can download that report in our show notes. But to give you that high-level summary, of course, we know in higher ed marketing for years, the college search journey started with a Google query. And if you were lucky, a click into your website. Marketers built entire strategies around that funnel, awareness, consideration to inquiry, but the funnel's fracturing. This new report is the first to quantify how generative AI is reshaping student search. It's backed by more than 450,000 real student interactions across 60 programs, and Everspring's analysis shows that half of GPT users are aged 18 to 25, and 45% of your prospective students now use AI tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity as part of their college search process. But only 13% of students fact check AI generated answers by visiting a college's official site afterwards. So what does that mean? It means students are getting answers about your institution, your programs, your cost, the quality of your education without ever even hearing directly from you. I don't think the problem is just visibility. It's also verifiability. AI tools are surfacing answers drawn from literally whatever is available and indexed. That's Reddit posts, PDFs, your outdated web content, unofficial rankings. And most institutions aren't even aware of what's being said or whether or not it's accurate. If your brand message never makes it past the AI gatekeeper, your other campaigns might not even matter. So Mike, Pulse listeners know I have been on this soapbox about this very topic for a while now. I recently interviewed Jason Smith from Oho and Sarah Russell from Eddie on this very topic. AI isn't just influencing discovery, it's filtering it, and your report drives that home. Again, 45% of students are using these tools, but only 13% are fact checking them. So I got to ask, Mike, in your opinion, are colleges already losing the visibility game? And what is at stake if colleges and universities do not course correct quickly?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you touched on a lot of the components of it. So I don't think it's over yet. The game's not over yet. I think if you think of the advent of any new channel, if you want to call it that, and I actually wouldn't even call this a channel. We'll talk about that more. I think it's more of a conversation. But, it's sort of like when the internet came along, when you had paid search or paid social, it didn't kill TV or radio. It dramatically shifted the high intent audiences and the media spend. And so you're seeing that happen now. It's not over yet, but it's moving quickly. And like you touched on, it's happening. The stats are showing it's happening in an incredible clip. Like we looked at this 2 years ago. Initially, we're like, oh, this is interesting. This is showing up as a referral source. But the speed with which it has come in and grabbed share is staggering. I've never seen it in my entire marketing career. Nothing like it, right? So I think it's important and it's getting to the point where it's critical. I think the thing that's sort of affecting universities in particular in terms of the visibility game is what you just touched on in terms of how much it's going out there and grabbing and where it's grabbing it from. AI favors things like clarity and structure and semantic relevance. And a lot of .edus kind of fall short on that for a lot of different reasons. One is budget. Two is that they don't really have sort of a centralized sort of structure. There's a lot of colleges doing their own thing, whether it be paid media or content strategy. And without a unified signal or optimized structure, you can risk either being represented or being excluded altogether. And this isn't a risk of sort of not showing up in a rankings like it used to be. It's being invisible at the point of decision. And that's where I would define this different than a channel, but rather almost a discussion that is happening sort of out of your visibility.
It's a direct quote from your report that I pulled. You wrote, ranking isn't enough and ads won't buy you visibility anymore. And I think that gets at the heart of it because like you just said, when the student is at the point of decision making or even step it back maybe 12 months at the point where they're building their consideration set, your institution might not even get on the consideration set if you're being either misrepresented or excluded in the AI returns.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What's really interesting is when we first started looking at this, we were seeing a shift in student behavior in general, like where you were seeing, and I don't know, this is dating me a little bit, but there was no such thing as a consideration set when I was looking at going to school, right? It was, I want to get into this school. I will pay whatever they tell me to pay. I will take it in the modality they tell me to pay. I will show up to the class at the time they tell me to show up, right? Students now, for a variety of reasons we won't have time to cover in the podcast, have shifted their behavior where they're more picky, right? They are building in considerations. They're like, I want it hybrid or I want it online. I want it to be under this, I want it to be completed within 12 months. I want it to be under this price point. And then they build out a consideration set. And we're seeing this in traditional search where we're seeing non-branded keywords outrank branded keywords, which is a shift that shows that they're building pick lists. They're building consideration sets, like we said. Now you show that and AI shows up at the same time and you're adding gas to that fire, right? So that is happening, but it's not just happening. It's happening, like you just alluded to, at the zero click position, right? So it used to be that you made the decision point on the website, and then it was maybe in organic search. Then it was maybe in social media. So it's always been moving up the funnel, but it's now at a zero click level. So to your point, it's completely invisible to you. So if you're really paying a lot of attention to curating something outside of AI, you're missing the conversation, quite frankly, literally,
So along these lines, you have data in your report that does prove that students aren't just asking AI for facts. They are asking for recommendations. And as a marketer, that's hard to hear. Like we've spent decades trying to build brand trust through things like rankings and our marketing campaigns. But now students just fully outsource their trust to ChatGPT. So if that's becoming the guide, What does that mean for our schools in terms of brand preference, even reputational risk? And do the institutions in this future state even have the ability to shape perception anymore?
Probably the $1 million question, right? The short answer is we don't totally know. None of us totally know. But where I think it is heading, and if you look at this, I will try not to go down the rabbit hole too far on this, but I think this is the gist. This is the crux of the issue with AI's introduction. This has been happening, I think, for a while, right? So you've got paid search results, and then like the latest sort of iteration, I'll call this, is influencers, right? That's something where you've got a brand's reputation in the hands of a third party. This isn't much different than that. It's just the next evolution of that in my mind. So what I think is going on with AI is it's not just retrieving results like a search engine would. It is assembling a narrative, right? So it's acting like an agent, and it's interpreting your brand from the content you provide, reviews on, like you just said, Reddit, third-party signals, your web structure. So it's going out there and putting a lot of stuff to there. So those are the things you need to have in mind when you're curating your brand. Is you have to make sure that it is indexable, it's publicly visible, that it's curated, it's consistent. You're making sure that all the web presence that touches on your brand lines up to the same narrative. There's no gaps in it that it's going to infer or deduce or fill in the blanks on. I think those are the kind of signals on there. The other thing that's sort of interesting is this is sort of the biggest departure is that it used to be there was the technical component where you had to make sure the signals were right from an SEO standpoint. And then you got them to the website, and then you had to have the human component to make sure you had a compelling argument. That is all kind of collapsed together now. It's one component. You have to have the technical signals. You know, you're almost equipping this agent to advocate on your behalf to the brand is how to think of it, right? Which is crazy, right? But if you think of it that way, that's the right lens to look at it that way. So you're almost you're not doing technical and then the sort of psychological, I guess you call it. You're doing it all in one. You're making sure the technical signals are there. It's publicly available. It's indexable, and that it's building a compelling narrative about your brand and why you should be there, addressing those sort of high intent questions, et cetera.
Okay, so I feel incredibly compelled, listeners, to remind you to please go rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, because I too do not want the brand perception and reputation of Higher Ed Pulse or Enrollify left up to the ChatGPT gods. So please, call to action, rate and review. I would so appreciate it. But Mike, I think moving on, there is another layer here that is easy to miss, but it's really big for us marketers. We used to analyze search intent to understand where a student was in the funnel, but your research shows that students going to AI first are there not just to learn, but maybe even to decide. So what is happening to the concept of intent now? And what are marketers missing when they still treat all of this like a traditional funnel?
That is the biggest shift right there with the introduction of AI. This is my own personal point of view. So caveat it, take the appropriate amount of salt with that. But I think what's going on is the idea of intent as we've always known it as marketers has changed forever, period. End of sentence. I've been trained my entire marketing career to think of it as stages of a funnel. You know, there's the awareness stage, there's a consideration stage, there's an advocacy after the fact. That is all one dialogue. It's collapsed. And that's my read of what I'm seeing out there. Maybe some people may violently agree or disagree with me on that, but I really, truly think that's the world we're in now. And I think it's really wise to start looking at it that way. So what that means is, you know, to think of it in terms of signals the way we used to is very, very different. You need to look at it in a whole new lens, right? The other thing is what we kind of touched on lightly, but students are having deeply personal conversations with AI, right? I think part of it is the breadth of information it goes into. Certainly part of it is they're trusting it wholesale at surface. But the other part is that it's maybe kind of private. So they can say, I don't have the greatest GPA. I want to do this with my career. What are the schools that can kind of help me get there? That's not something you're going to talk to a guidance counselor about, or a friend, or a coworker, or a boss, but you can with ChatGPT. And so if you put all that together, it's a very different lens on how you convince somebody to kind of check out your programs.
When I was at the Engage Summit And at the end of June, I did a session around why the students would rather talk to an AI bot than a human. And, one of the reasons that I highlighted, and listeners know, one of the things I like to always point out is AI offers a safe, embarrassment-free space for even the most basic of questions. And I think my listeners will roll their eyes if they're like, you're going to tell the toilet paper story again, so I'm not going to. But seriously, students want to know if there's toilet paper in the dorm room. And I can promise you they are not asking their admission counselor that question. And so you can extrapolate all the other things around psychological safety when it comes to talking to AI. And so I think, like, when you really think about that, it just makes a lot of sense that clearly they're trusting the source, but a big reason why they're doing it is because of that psychological safety.
100% agreed. I think that's exactly right. And we'll leave it alone because we don't want to get accused of
I've told this story 80 times. It's my favorite one. So have you seen schools actually test how they show up in AI? Like actually, go to AI, run some prompt audits, maybe do a little mystery shopper. I'm curious what you would recommend to a CMO. What questions should they be throwing at ChatGPT right now? And I guess equally important, what should they be looking for in the answers?
So the short answer to the first part of your question is no, and it's a huge missed opportunity. I do not see really a lot of our partners or prospective partners doing this, and I don't think it's that hard, right? So I think it's sort of like, if you think about, maybe this is a less intimidating analogy, is this to me feels a lot like when Google came in and took over from Yahoo, right? In that it's a much more natural and intuitive platform for getting your questions answered. And so I think you do the same sort of hygiene there as you would here, right? So I think the first level of that is things like, run regular prompts, put into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, what's the best online MBA for working adults, or who's still accepting fall 2025 applications, or what's a good alternative to school X or school Y? Like, those are really simple things you can do to just get a sense of where you fit into this landscape, right? And then you can go into more detailed things like asking about like where are you included, or what's your value proposition, and seeing if it's showing up clearly, or how are you sort of reflected against your peer set. These are the kind of things you could do. And these are sort of basic standard performance reviews you can do. Just like honestly, like you looked at rankings with SEO. I think it's the equivalent of rankings in SEO. It's a sort of everyday thing that they should be doing to make sure they're showing. We talked about, there is a lot of arguments you can make of why someone shouldn't be using this channel, let's call it. But they are, right? It's now the new channel, right? I think I remember the same thing with influencers, how cavalier, how irresponsible to put your brand in the hands of, but that is where the students are. That's where you need to be. This is the same thing here. So making sure you're there at all. And then when you do show up there, you're showing up in the way you want to show up. And then going into all the things you could do from a technical standpoint to make sure you're showing up properly.
Your report gives some great recommendations around both organic and paid search strategies. So if I'm that CMO listening to this, here's the thing. I can't overhaul my SEO strategy tonight, and I can't change Google's algorithm or magically make my institution's content rank in AI reviews tomorrow. So I am limited in what I can control, but I can control some things. So if I want to show up in that AI overview next semester, not next year, what should I do right now?
Excellent question. And the answer is a pretty straightforward one, is you don't need to do an overhaul. A lot of people get really big wins on AI by taking their literally existing content and just re-optimizing it for AI, not just SEO, right? So some of the content you will find, and we've seen this with partners of ours, where they got the best performance, wasn't a wholesale new content strategy or series of blog posts. It was literally taking the exact content they have right now and making sure that it's optimized for AI. So what that means is using things like schema markup. That was always important with SEO. It's even more true with AI. Using natural language headings, putting it in a QA format, answering high intent questions, things like cost or flexibility, career outcomes, deadlines, those types of things. Updating third-party profiles and making sure you're removing any outdated information from your website, because AI, one of the parts of AI that makes it powerful is it is pulling from everywhere. The other thing to keep in mind is AI seems to love long tail. So making sure you're having long tail, like I think it's keywords over 6 words. It's in our report that you can download from the link, is that I think it's 6 words or more It shows up 77% of the time if it's a longer tail keyword and specifically a question. So that is where it lives. It doesn't need more content; it needs better formatted content. That's the way to look at AI.
That's a great tactical tip. Thank you for that. I have a lot of empathy for these CMOs. And after doing quite a bit of travel this summer, I feel like I've talked to, probably 20 or 30 campus marketing leaders. And what makes me nervous is that for the most part, AI is still not cracking the top 3 in terms of the things they're paying attention to because of the realities of, some of the decisions that are being made at the federal level, their budgeting, and just the turn in their budget year, among many, many other things happening at their campuses. But with AI not cracking the top 3, I mean, I'm left trying to figure out, is it a tech fluency gap in leadership? Is it fear of being wrong? Is it just organizational paralysis? I am concerned that the schools who wait are going to lose. So, Mike, from where you sit, I'm curious what you think are keeping these colleges and college leaders from acting on what Everspring's report data is just screaming at us to do.
Well, it's interesting you're asking me this question now, Mallory, because I just a few days ago so one of the things we've obviously done is we've published this report to the market, but we've also, with our partners that we're currently engaged with, we're not only running them through the report and sort of the outcomes, we're giving them sort of a custom readout of how they rank. So we're coming in and saying, here's how often you're showing up in AI overviews, how many times you're cited, what you can do about it, some content that's low-hanging fruit. And at the end of the report, the CMO we talked to at this partner that will remain nameless, but is a really sophisticated partner and a really well-regarded school, said it's just so overwhelming. And I think that's it. They're just overwhelmed. And part of it is all the things you just talked, the complexities and encumberment that these schools are challenged with regulations or budgets and things like that, coupled with how fast it's moving. It is moving faster. I've seen all sorts of disruption the first time, again, I'm dating myself, but the first time I was using social media, there was no such thing as paid social media. You were just organic, right? I remember the beginning of paying for placement on social media. Nothing is as disruptive as this. It's just overwhelming. And every time you get a beat on it, it reinvents itself again. Like if you go in and look at AI overviews in Google, for example, every version you get is different than the one you got last week or the week before. And for those of you who play around with a lot, you're probably getting the AI mode where you can go even deeper down the rabbit hole with it. It's constantly showing you a new version of itself. And that's one of many platforms, right? So I get that that's what it is. It's overwhelming. And I think the answer to that is that just take a step back and think of what marketing is at its core. And no time in marketing, as disruptive as this is, has the intent to ever change. This isn't a reinvention of marketing. It's a natural evolution and progression of marketing, right? So marketing has always been, and particularly been for higher ed, about solving a problem for someone, right? I want to get this career outcome. I want to make more money. I want to help people. So having people with a question and then providing them an answer, or having people with a problem and providing them a solution is what we've always done. And this is just the next level of how to do that. And if you think about it that way, it's actually less daunting and it's maybe a little bit more exciting if you think about it that way. That's what I would say. And you do that coupled with some of the technical things or the tactical things we talked about, I think you can really get there pretty quickly.
I love how you just framed that, Mike. Thank you. Listeners, I want to tell you about something I'm really excited to be a part of before we wrap up today. The Admission and AI Summit is on August 21st, and I will put a link for where you can register into our show notes. This is a free virtual event that is specifically designed for admission directors and heads of independent schools. So it's really geared to that K-12 audience and folks who want to explore how AI can actually enhance the personal connections that make our schools special. I'm going to be speaking alongside many other experts, including our favorite host, Brian Piper on Enrollify. So together we will be sharing practical strategies and things that you can use right away. It's going to be a great event. And if you're in that K-12 space and you're curious about AI and admissions, but you want to keep the human touch at the center, this event is definitely for you. So I look forward to, in air quotes, seeing you there later this month. Mike, as we wind this down today, I think we have hit it a few times, right? The traditional marketing funnel is broken. Campaign attribution, lead gen, conversion strategy, it just all collapses if you're not even visible. Last question, Mike. What does this mean for how we need to be planning and measuring marketing right now?
Yeah, great question. I think the short answer is the funnel isn't gone. It's just less visible to us, quite frankly. That's the reality we need to recognize, right? So if that's true, the traditional attribution as we know it, it breaks down in a zero-click world, right? We've literally measured based on clicks. If the starting point of this quote-unquote channel is there's a no-click environment, that doesn't apply, right? So I think what we need to do is we need to adapt, right? Obviously, we just start tracking things that we do have visibility to. So we have visibility into referral traffic coming from these LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. You can start seeing those increasingly show up as referral traffic. They've started embedding links, right? So it's not used to be when we looked at it. And when I say used to be, I'm not talking 5 years ago. I'm talking like 5 months ago, that you would get the answer. You'd open a new tab, you'd do a brand new search, and you'd go for the thing that I told you to go look for. Now you can link out. So that helps our trackability with that. I think the other thing is you can track, like we just talked about, visibility and AI generated answers. So that's another thing you can tap into right now. You can see the sentiment and the narrative around your brand in the same platform. That's another thing you can track. AI overviews is a great one because it sits between, let's call it generative AI as a whole and Google search results. So we can apply a lot of what we do with SEO there because you can absolutely track and measure and optimize to AI placement, and within that AI placement, citability, right? So all of that is stuff you can look at. End of the day is it's going to keep evolving. We're going to have to keep an eye on it, but we're not flying behind. We're just working with new signals is all it is.
Those are some great quick wins to end on. And I want to co-sign the one around testing your AI visibility. Just do it right now, right? Like while you're listening to the end of this episode, go pretend you're a student, see how an AI tool is answering some common questions about your institution or about program discoverability, and not only ask it now, but make it a habit and then check it regularly and document results and improvements over time. That is one of the easiest, most tactical things that you can get started on literally this very moment. I know listeners, you want to get your hands on this Everspring research. Don't forget, you can find the link in the show notes. I'm sure if you came to this episode from LinkedIn, Enrollify will be posting the link to this report as well. Mike, you're 12 days out from a wedding. Thank you again for joining us on Enrollify. Where can listeners connect with you after this episode?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm at. And I'm pretty communicative on it. So if you need to get a hold of me, reach out. I'm happy to connect with you.
Incredible. All right. Well, thank you so much. And listeners, we'll catch you next week. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Pulse. The show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.